Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is April 7, 2024. We want to thank Rob Grant's amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Also, want to thank Sweeney's Pharmacy for introducing me to today's guests. Nastasia and Zoe, special thanks. PJ Murphy, where in the heck you calling in from?
I'm calling in from France. I have a house over here, and I didn't expect to be here. So when I realized that I had to have an interview with you, I said I'll go through hook and to crook to make sure I have the interview with you as well. Thank you.
You are sweet, PJ. I appreciate all your teachings of Finnegan's Wake and James Joyce to me and much more. Smiles, music, and fun. So, the first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
I think the best thing for a human being is live the moment and also to do what one has to do and not be influenced by others.
I love that. You are a unique human. What's your favorite form of information, PJ? How it comes into you?
Well, my favorite information is speaking with friends, meeting new people, and listening to their stories. The most important thing about information is listening, because if you don't listen, you don't hear. And Joyce was a listener, James Joyce, and that's what I specialize in. And when you read his works, as I have read many, many times, you know that he's a listener.
Very good. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
I think humans collect information because of their past, of what they experience in the present, and what they hope for in the future. And I think that humans in general, they have a history of what's happened to their parents, their grandparents, and that, and people who've gone back centuries, and it comes to them if they're lucky, and if they're not lucky, they don't know. But basically, this is one of the reasons I think it's so important for humans to be like that.
Beautiful. PJ, is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
I think it's a more innate
Yeah.
because I think to be to understand your personality, to understand you must understand all of these things.
Fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I.
I don't know what I think until I have experienced it or have done it, and also to have experienced it as well. So.
Yeah, beautiful. McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it. But can humans think without language?
Um, yes, of course they can think without language, but language provides that extra special tool to understand culture, to understand everything around them. So
What Chomsky says a language is not just words, it's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. PJ, what do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
what do I do? Language rarely breaks down. When language breaks down totally, you reflect and you try to work out why the language isn't working, and you try to make it work. So.
Beautiful. You're really teaching me a lot, PJ, as usual. I appreciate this. So, your opinion, your observation of humans in general, are we more feeling beings or more thinking beings?
I would say are more feeling beings.
Yeah.
And basically, the more you feel, the better you feel. So,
Two questions from Alan Turing in the 50s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
um, it is to a point, but not necessarily.
Two, can machines think?
Well, if you like machines a lot, of course they can think.
If you like, that is a beautiful statement, my friend. I love you. Okay, do you more wait, did I ask you this? Do thoughts create emotions?
No, you didn't ask me that yet.
Boy, you're
But
a
of
good
course,
listener
thoughts
there.
create
See, I can't even keep track. You're a good listener. Thank you for being a good listener. Yeah.
Well,
Do thoughts
why,
create
thank you.
emotions?
Of course, thoughts create emotion. Emotions all come from thoughts.
Yeah, you'll love this. Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. I'm like, good luck. How do you turn your brain off? Okay. You know what you said there reminded me of? I want you to react to this quote. Shelby Foote, a fact is not a truth until you love it. Any reaction to that thought?
Well, a fact is not the truth until you prove it's a fact.
Prove it. Yes. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
I more pursue happiness. Happiness incorporates meaning.
But Viktor Frankl said in Man's Search for Meaning that happiness doesn't necessarily last, meaning tends to last.
Well, you can make both of them last just as long as you want them to.
That's right. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
No, I think we detect it.
What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Well, I think speed of thought.
There's no right or wrong answers, but that one you got right. Thank you. Audrey, I knew we would have fun. So Audre Lorde, the poet, said you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer responded to her and said, yes, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
I think the best tool is the one he has himself. So
The best tool is what? I missed that.
is the one he has himself. It's
To
ambivalent.
the one he
He
has
has himself.
himself. Yeah. What new toy do you suggest?
I'd say you should keep the house, not dismantle it,
Keep the house what?
and not dismantle it.
Oh, and not dismantle it. Yes, and not dismantle. Very good. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Well, what I worry about mostly is how many times I can come.
Wow. Marshall McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artist. Well, no, I'll throw in a. Can you? Can you? No, that was a good answer. I never had that answer, and I'll up you one, or not up you one. Uh, um, Frank Zappa said, asked the question, can you come and laugh at the exact same moment?
Well, it depends on who you're coming with.
So you're saying you can.
Yes, of course.
That's pretty good, PJ. You're teaching me a lot. Okay, Marshall McLuhan.
Yeah, I think there's very little I can teach you, Jerry.
Oh no, you're a wise human. I mean, if I could sing songs as good as you and have the memory of singing those songs and lyrics, I'd be a better man. So Marshall McLuhan
Yeah.
learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, artists are the antenna of the race. Broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions so we might be able to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So, PJ, I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
I think we ignore them is because of fear. Sometimes we're afraid of the unknown, and until we actually know how they work, we tend to reject them, if you like. So,
Do artists have moral obligation?
not at all. If they had moral obligations, they'd never be artists.
Dude, you're knocking them out of the park, man. You are good. I love you. Okay. Are you I'm serious. I'm not I mean we can laugh, but these are I've done this for 40 years and I want people to answer a certain way, but I welcome all answers. And you're really resonating with my own consciousness. Thank you. So, are you more afraid of old ideas or more afraid of new ideas?
I'm afraid of neither.
Yeah.
Old ideas are the ones that form us, and new ideas are the ones that we live with, or we hope to actually experience as well. So,
Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
yes, I can. My earliest memory is creeping because I was a little fat baby and I could shuffle on my bum, and my friend who was Georgie, he was on his hands and knees and he always went faster than me, and I was very competitive even at that age, whatever it was, a few months. So I tried to creep on my hands and knees, and I found it painful. So I said, okay, let him win. It doesn't matter. So, and that's my earliest memory. So,
What year were you born?
in 1950.
1950?
Yes,
Okay. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
memory is always a blessing.
Tell me someone within your immediate family and then outside your immediate family, just briefly, who had an influence on you, kind of like a role model. And what specifically was that impact?
Well, I suppose I have. I'm one of six siblings. So I had one brother who was 3 years older. Then I had a sister in between us. She was, a year and a bit older than me, and then I had three sisters after that, and then the second last sister, she would probably have an influence on me. Well, I'm close friends with all my siblings, as you can imagine, and but we have become very, very close friends. And I see how she deals with life, and it influences me as well. So, and
Some
also,
Go
uh,
ahead.
yeah, no, you go ahead.
That was good. I mean, what'd you mainly get from her? How to deal with life? Suss that out a little more. What did she teach you, or what's the impact on that attitude about life?
Well, attitude, she has lots of friends, the same as I have, and it's how she deals with her friends' tragedies. Because all of us, we lose friends, and also all of us, we have friends who have illnesses that are terminal, and it's how she deals with that would have a tremendous influence on me as well. So.
Beautiful. And so, same question outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact on you, and what was that impact?
Um, I have many friends outside my family, and so it's a difficult question without offending somebody because I have a lot of friends outside my family. But I have one particular friend, and we've known each other since for maybe 45 years or so. Uh, we studied together, and he has more or less introduced me to a world which I wouldn't have known probably without him. So
Beautiful. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
yes, they did. They raised me loving because we grew up in a dairy farm, and the religion was to milk as many cows as you could, as many times a day, 7 days a week.
Do you pray?
Of course, I prayed to win the lotto.
If God exists, what do you want God to say to you after you die?
Well, he said you can go down below or up above, so depending on what you're guilty of.
Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I think evil uses people as a vehicle.
Yeah. Well, the hidden question really is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set it up. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurai. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. It's a lot of prompts. The basic question is, how do you, PJ, advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you react to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I agree with Alan Watts totally. If you acknowledge your enemy, you do empower them. If you ignore your enemy, then they have nothing to focus on, so they find another focus. So therefore, that's why I agree with Alan Watts. And basically, if you have somebody who's an enemy or who may be a potential enemy, and they try to make you do something you don't want to do, and you just ignore it as if they don't exist, then they go away.
It's really wise. In fact, you brought up this word competition. And I'm curious about, is competition hardwired or is it something we invented? But I'll set it up. Games, this is Nassim Taleb. Games were created to give non heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. Villains don't think they're bad, they want control. Heroes want freedom. Gregory Bateson said if the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day? Or does he go, wow, I did something morally and socially wrong? So basically, there's two questions from all those prompts. Does punishment work? And is competition more hardwired or more invented?
I think first, competition is more hardwired, and the first one is it's a learning process.
Right. But do you think punishment works?
Not really. No, I don't think punishment works.
Yeah. James Joyce was a projectionist in Dublin at Volta Cinema 100 years ago. He basically checked out, allegedly. He said, why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? In fact, Faulkner said years later, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Because it's very necessary to go to a play and see people act out life. Because we all have done that in our own way. And when you go to a theater and watch people reenact life, we're kind of critical, saying, well, are they getting the real message as we would have done, or are they bad actors?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
PJ, yeah, that's good. Bad, that's Godard said Hollywood films are just documentaries of actors acting.
uh, um, well, you could say that, or you could change your mind and say, fine, there I'm representing something that we all feel, that we've all been through, and
Yeah,
that we've heard from our grandparents, etc. So,
yeah. So
so I've just been given,
PJ, walk
I've
us
just
through
been,
your. Go ahead.
I've just been given a French chocolate, so that's what I'm chewing.
Oh, milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
No, it's milk chocolate.
Nice.
Sorry, I can't share it with you.
Oh, I got the sentiment though. It's my favorite. Okay, so PJ, walk us through your callings in life. What did you study in high school and college? And then if we met at a party and I said, "Hey, what do you do?" What do you usually say to people? What's your career or job?
My job is basically, well, first of all, my degree is in retail and also in languages. So I teach four languages. I speak 10. And also, I used to buy and sell shoes. And also, I used to travel to different parts of Europe to buy and sell them. And when you're dealing with the public, it's like being I was also an actor in theater. When you're dealing with people from all walks of life, everybody has to buy shoes. So you meet people from all walks of life and from everywhere. So you glean all of this from them. So, and I tell people, this is what I've done, this is what I do. And basically, now I'm specializing in James Joyce, who is his family members are friends of mine, and also literature in Dublin. And so, what I do now reflects what I trained as or what I studied, if you like.
Wow, really well put. So, what was your tipping point, your Rubicon to pursue acting? You're going along, you're seeing plays, TV, movie growing up. Where did you go? That's what I want to pursue, acting.
Well, I was very beautiful, so I said somebody else had to see me. So the best place for people to see me was on stage.
Same question for retail. When did you go that I want to pursue salesmanship?
Well, salesmanship was, I went into sales because, first of all, you made money, and secondly, you met the world and his wife and their children as well. Very important, their children, because their children would grow up one day and they would bring their children to you, which they did do in the past. So it's a way, it's like a springboard into areas that you would never experience yourself.
Same question with pursuing languages. Very few people can speak 10 languages, let alone teach four of them. Where's your tipping point to say, I'm going to be a language teacher, educator?
Well, my tipping point is I love culture. The best way to understand culture and is to learn the language of the people. And basically, when you learn the language, for instance, I can go to Russia, I can read the signs, I can chat with Russian people without having an interpreter interpret for me. And the same in every when you go to say Italy and you order their wine, you listen to the wine they're going to give you, and usually it's the best wine, especially if you go to a restaurant and you take the wine from the proprietor because he wants the best wine for his restaurant. When you go to Spain, you have the best tortilla because they like their tortillas and the paella and their wine as well. When you go to France, and they introduce you to the best women.
Beautiful. A screenwriting teacher told me great art is a screenwriting teacher told me, God, we're having fun. Listen, when you're laughing, you're learning. I'm so happy you're laughing. That's the whole purpose of this to have fun and laugh. So a screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Stanley Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play when you're an actor? When you played a role in a play, what role did intention play in your creative process?
My intention was to make people feel comfortable. And when you looked at the audience, first of all, when you start acting first and you're on stage for the first time, you think everybody's looking at you. And then after a few performances, you realize that half of them are talking to each other and the other half are looking at you. So basically, my intention is to let them all be happy.
And the same question in your intention in your creative process as an educator.
My intention as an educator is to make I was educating adults and children, and that is to make them feel that what they have is very worthwhile, and what they feel they're missing isn't worthwhile, and basically that they can achieve what they want to achieve, provided they're true to themselves.
And one more is on retail. Your creative process, the intention of selling shoes, like you said, was to make money. There's a McLuhan epiphany that he got from reading Finnegan's Wake. And he learned from Joyce that everything humans invent extends some humanness or human sensorium. So the knife and the fork extends our teeth. The shutter in a camera extends our eyelid. Maybe even non tangible, say religion or philosophy, extends consciousness. What does money extend? What humanness does money extend?
Money extends the fact that when, for instance, I'm selling shoes, I'm giving a service. And also, that service is listening to what people want. And you give, say, just say in shoes, you listen to the type of shoe they want and, for instance, their child needs. And they give you money, you give them a service like giving the shoes. So, and that for me extends to every part of our existence. Every part of our daily life, if you like. So.
Brilliant. You brought up the word listening several times, PJ, and I'm curious.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm very true. But Jerry, I want to say I've just been given a lovely whiskey by my French guest here, my French host rather, because I'm doing it from his house, and he's my neighbor. So I want to say cheers to everybody who's listening. Sláinte.
Cheers, cheers to you. I toast to my camera. Look at you
Yeah,
toast
yeah. I
right.
see you're drinking tequila.
Arriba, arriba. So this is beautiful. Um, you know, you brought up this word listening several times, and I'm very intrigued. Did you get
Yes.
this talent of listening? You said it was so important to be a listener. Did you get that more from the way your parents raised you or on your own?
I think I got it from both. From because as a child in school, I was punished a lot for being different, and I had to listen to why I was being punished. And but my parents were listeners; they listened to me as well, so I got it from both. Because basically, if you listen, you understand things, and if you don't listen, you miss things that you should have gotten in the first place. And also, listening has to do with memory. As I said to you, my earliest memory was creeping, and I have an unusual visual memory insofar as, and I think that's why my language skills kick in because I speak 10 and I'm learning four more at the moment. Because listening is one of the most important things about understanding people, understanding situations, and so on.
Yeah, PJ, listening's an amazing factor in music too. People don't realize that to be a great musician, you can learn the skills of the instrument, but also you have to be a good listener. So I want to go to that word experience you brought up several times. McLuhan has this line that goes like this: everybody experiences far more than they understand. Yet it is experience rather than understanding that influences behavior. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think that means. Doesn't mean it's right. And then I wanted you to suss it out. I think he's saying that there's experience and there's understanding. And experience is the kid comes in from the cold and the parent goes, "Don't touch the stove, it will burn your hand." Understanding is the parent going, "You can get really close to the stove, rub your hands together, and your hands will get warm." That's understanding the dynamics of heat. So I think Marshall's saying experiences shape our behavior when really understanding should shape our behavior. What do you think?
I think experience shape our behavior. If you don't experience something, you don't quite understand it, because people can tell you how it should be, but when you experience it, you understand it very, very deeply and fully.
Yeah. Now, Ruth Draper, let's go to acting because Ruth Draper said is the key is to bring the audience up onto the stage and into the scene with you. It is they who must give you even more than you give them in the way of imagination and creative power. That sounds good, but how do you do that?
That's a rather difficult one. However, you give what you can, and the rest you leave.
Yeah. Well, Leonard Cohen says the only way you can sell a concert is to put yourself at risk. And if you don't do that, people know. What role does risk play in your creative process?
Um, as we say, if you don't chance your arm, you can't break your elbow. So you have to take risks in whatever you do, and when you take a risk, there's always fear, and you must overcome that fear to take the risk, and you make what was a risk into a reality or into a very positive thing. So.
One more in this regard is if this is Viola Spolin, she sort of invented comedy improv as a social worker in Chicago, doing role playing and sort of spawned Second City and Saturday Night Live. And she said, if the audience cannot see your struggle to achieve something, they cannot root for you to achieve it. What role does struggle play in your creative process?
I think most people are unaware of the struggle that people have when they're trying to create something. So I don't think people are terribly sort of positive towards knowing somebody's struggle. They're more, they're more conscious of their achievement rather than their struggle.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, PJ, walk us through your history with James Joyce. Are you in high school, grade school, learning Joyce because they assigned it to you? Or did you first read Joyce on your own outside of the academic setting?
Okay, well, my background is I left school at 15. I hated school. I was very bad at school. And then my father, we were a farming background. He used to milk 80 cows a day and milk, deliver calves and all of that. And then he decided that he would put me into a shoe shop. And so in a shoe shop, I began to realize that I shouldn't have left school so early. And I went back to school at night. And there I discovered Joyce through a lovely professor called Professor Ennis, who introduced me to Dubliners. And the one that I remember most was Clay, but we also did Ulysses. But I fell in love with Joyce then. And then Joyce was a bit like me. He was a bit of a rebel, and I loved his writing. I loved his way of feeling people and listening to people. And so it started when I was in my teens, if you like.
In the teens. And what was the book you started with before Ulysses?
With Dubliners.
Oh, you
And
started.
the one I remember was Clay
Yeah.
with Dubliners. And the one I remember most was Clay because we always had barn brack for Halloween. And Maria cut the barn brack so carefully that you wouldn't know it was cut. And that was what I remembered of all the stories I read. Not the dead or not the sisters or any of the others. It was or Araby. It was this one, Clay.
Yeah. And so when Joyce says the term epiphanies in everydayness, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? And what was Joyce meaning by an epiphany in everydayness?
An epiphany everydayness is how you are, how you live your life, and the things you take from your life as well, or the things that you feel you're not immersed in, but every day brings something different, and that's the epiphany of your day. So.
You know, Richard Ellman has a line that goes, "We're all learning to be Joyce's contemporaries." And I'm curious, a couple uh, thoughts on this line from Richard Ellman, learning to be Joyce's contemporaries. Joyce said all times are happening now, all at onceness. And he's dealing with time. What does this mean to learn to be Joyce's contemporary? Because it means, are we supposed to time travel back to Joyce's time, or are we supposed to go forward as a time machine with Joyce? This whole idea of time in Joyce's novels, especially Finnegan's Wake, learning to be Joyce's contemporaries. What do you think Ellman meant by that?
Well, my conception of what Emily meant by that was Joyce's contemporaries is when you read Joyce, you identify with how he's writing, and you're not going you're identifying with how he writes and the people he writes about. And I'm a Dubliner, and I can see exactly the type of person he's describing. So for me, Joyce is my contemporary.
And what is this all times are happening now? You spoke earlier to live in the moment. Ram Dass says, be here now. And Wyndham Lewis says, artists live in the present and write a detailed history of the future. It sort of sounds like sci-fi to the normal person. How can you live in the moment when the moment we just lived in right now is already past?
That's a very good question. However, living in the moment is incorporating the past and also waiting for the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're a good listener, PJ. Yeah, right. You know,
You're a good questioner.
well, thank you. I appreciate what you're doing, teaching me a lot here today. And I've asked you this question before, and I'm amazed at I asked all these big hotshot Joyce scholars this question, but you already gave me the best answer ever. Let's see how you answer it again on tape now. or live across the universe. That's it. We are live. This is live TV across the whole world. So I'm really happy to be here with you, PJ. This is how much percentage did Joyce get the wake, and how much percentage do you get the wake? From 0 to 100% being the most.
Well, I think Joyce got it 100% or maybe 110%, and I get it 105%.
Woo! Now I love that because most people try to be humble and they go, "Oh, I get it 10%." I said, "If you're in a Joyce reading club, you're already getting it 80% because you keep coming back, right?"
But Jerry, you read it. It took you 41 years to read it. I read it 46 times in 12 years. So let's face it. That's why I give myself 105%.
105%. That is
Yeah.
beautiful.
No,
Okay.
but one of the reasons is, yeah. No, but can I just continue on the wake there?
Oh, please,
The
please.
wake is yeah, the Wake has 65 to 70 languages written phonetically in it, and also it lacks punctuation, and it also talks about Dubliners and people like me, and also the way to read the Wake is allowed because if you read a language, because I speak 10, I've studied maybe 30 languages, and when I was studying Turkish, I discovered two phrases in Turkish in Finnegan's Wake which were written phonetically. Had I not been studying Turkish, I wouldn't have understood them. And that's why it's so important to hear Finnegan's Wake, not just to read it and hear it at the same time. So
You
sorry, continue with your questions.
No, you have to hear it. And I want to thank you because
Yes.
I read it with my group in Venice for 28 years. Now we're continuing on our 29th year and repeating. And I thought we were doing it pretty good. But once I joined the Sweeney's Wake group, I said, this is the right way to read Finnegan's Wake, where you emphasize read. No, I'm very serious. I wanted to change to your method where you read it aloud for an hour with letting people read as much as they want. And then the next person, not 2 lines every person. It's too rigid that way. The flowing river kind of way of the Sweeney's group is the best. And that's the only group that really excels for me to get the wake. And I appreciate it. But we kept it our old way because people thought it. And the other one I love is singing a song before the reading. That is so important. And yeah,
Yeah, I agree because I brought my guitar to sing you a song or two songs
yeah.
tonight if you want to hear them. And
If
also, I agree totally that when we read Finnegan's Wake every Tuesday, we're online, anyone can join us. Each one reads a page, and there's a lovely flow in hearing it continue, continue, continue until the end of the page. And then, as there's no punctuation, you don't wait until you find the next sentence because you could wait for quite some time. You just stop at the last word, and then the other person continues. And then there are many songs. Joyce was a wonderful tenor, and also he has many, many songs tucked into Finnegan's Wake, as he has with all his works. So uh, then that's one of the reasons why we find a song that's relevant to particular pages we're reading, and we sing that song before we start reading. So, and that's
it's
Nastasia Ledy, and her son is with us here today. This is Ferdia, who's beside me, and he's very proud of his mother as well.
Well, tell him he did a good job raising his mother.
Yeah, he knows that as well. He keeps telling her that every day.
Okay, so
As
here we
most
go.
sons do tell their mothers.
Yes. And so PJ, here's Portrait of an Artist. I'm going to read a line from it. I will try to
Ah,
express I will try to express myself in some mode of life or art, as freely as I can and as wholly as I can, using for my defense the only arms I allow myself to use: silence, exile, and cunning. What do those three words mean to you, and what did they mean to Joyce?
Well, what silence, exile, and cunning mean to me, silence is when you're in a situation where you really can't convince somebody of your point of view, you stay silent. And then, of course, the second one, um, which is
Exile.
cunning, is exile is many of the Irish people, especially the artistic ones, because we had a very strong influence with our Catholic Church. Um, the only way to succeed was to leave Ireland and to go away. So, and then cunning was to make when you were away work, and Joyce
Yeah.
was able to do all of those things. So I think I would
There's
have managed it too had I needed extra.
But there's an interesting movie called Problema, and they ask people philosophical questions. And one of them is, should you choose where you live? And most people go, yes. And I'm like, no, I think people should stay where they were born and live there. Traveling's okay. But what do you think? Should we be able to choose where we live?
I think, I mean, I moved many times in my lifetime, and I mean, I'm living part of the time here in France in a lovely old 13th century house, and I kind of didn't choose to come; it came to me, and I think that uh, if you stay, if you decide to stay where you're born, you're rejecting what might come your way.
Very good. Here's another line from Joyce. Welcome, O life. I go to encounter for the millionth time the reality of experience and to forge in the smithy of my soul the uncreated conscious of my race, the created conscience of my race. These two phrases, what is Joyce meaning? The smithy of my soul and the uncreated conscience of my race.
I think what he means is everyone deep down in their soul, they have something that is achievable. And then the second part is uh, coming to achieve it or giving yourself the tools to achieve it.
Right. And what do you think Joyce gave himself to achieve? What was Joyce's intention and what was his tools?
I think his best tool was Nora, his wife, because she was behind him all the time from the time he was a very young man. And he knew what to do. But I mean, had he not had her, I don't think he would have achieved what he did achieve. So, you know, they say behind every man there's a good woman.
But what do you think, that question before, what role does intention play in your creative process? What's your guess? How would Joyce have answered that? What role did intention play in his creative process?
Well, I think with Joyce in creative process, his intention was to be the best of the best, and one of the things he had was great belief in himself. And as I used to say to my students, you know, be true to yourself, and he was true to himself.
What made Joyce a unique writer? I'm going to give you like some options: DNA, environment, upbringing, something else. I know there's many factors. What is your take, PJ? What made him the unique writer he is?
What for me, what made Joyce the unique writer was partly his upbringing because he came from a dysfunctional family, and he was the eldest of 10. and his father sadly had lost all his money. They had to move to many different houses to survive, and he saw, how they had to do this to stay sane, if you like. And but also he was a listener. He would listen to all. For instance, one of the best examples is in the Portrait of the Artist, when he's listening to the servants talking about the family having to move yet again when they live in Black Rock, and that's near where Nastasia lives, who does Finnegan's Wake, and also. The fact that he incorporates that into all his writings. And, when I read Joyce, he's non repetitive. And no matter when you meet characters that you met, say, in Dubliners, and you meet the same ones in Ulysses, he has captured the change that he has found and we find in each other. For instance, you're not the same as you were 2 years ago, and neither am I, but he could capture that subtle change and he can put it in print. And few writers I've read can do that. So,
Have Joyce's studies changed after Stephen's death?
you mean his grandson?
Yes.
Um, I think they may have done, because Stephen was very controlling of what could be done and what was done. So no matter what people did, he controlled them because he wanted money, and so certainly they would have changed differently, but not that much differently.
Yeah. What do you think the motive of the cave artist was? Your hunch or your guess?
The cave artist. I would say the cave artist was the one who started everything.
They started everything, but what was their motive?
The motive was survival.
Survival. Wow. Okay,
If you
what's
start,
more
if
important?
you if you start,
Go ahead. Sorry.
sorry, what's more important?
Oh, what's more important,
I
conviction
didn't.
or compromise?
Good question. I think conviction is more important.
You've accomplished a lot, PJ. How do you rate these three elements? Luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, second and third?
I think skill is the most important. Ambition is important as well, but I think probably look is the second one. So.
Luck's the second. Very good. T.S. Eliot said poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
I have many languages, so my inner dialogue could be in my own language, Gaelic, Irish, or it could be in English, or it could be in French, could be in Italian, and even sometimes in Russian. So
But
depending on the day.
more metaphorically, what form is your inner consciousness in?
That's a good question. My inner, well, I would say it's a bit like stream of consciousness.
Yeah. Two of my
Yeah.
film heroes. Yeah, it's stream of, well, stream of consciousness is sort of what they say Joyce helped invent with Virginia Woolf. Stream of the metaphor is there. Stream, river run.
Absolutely. River
No,
run, indeed.
one of my favorite answers, PJ, you'll love this. I says, what form is your inner consciousness in? Or no, what language is your inner dialogue in? And this woman goes, I wish I knew.
All right. I like that one too.
So, two of my film heroes, their mantra is ignore yourself. There's no self expression. Cecil Taylor, the great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making more self expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever technologies, cultures, and environments are dominant?
I think it's more of a you're more of a vehicle
Yeah. Can art making be
because
egoless?
can art making be?
Be egoless.
Oh, egoless. No, I don't think it can be. I think your ego is always there. So
Is perception reality?
no, definitely not. Perception is how you think things are, but not necessarily how they are.
And back to Finnegan's Wake, McLuhan probed Finnegan's Wake saying artists dream awake. Not to sound elitist, but everybody has this power to create scenarios in the middle of the night. Artists do this also while they're awake. Have dreams played a role in your creative process?
I think dreams play a role in everybody's creative process because dreams are your way of dealing with situations, sometimes that are difficult, or quite often they convey things that are there which you haven't realized yet.
Can you recall a dream that's repeated in your life and just describe it a little? Is there some dream or environment in your dream state that has come up that you could put into words a little right now?
Yes, I had a kind of a dream, and I was in a church and I was at a wedding. And a few years later, I was at the same wedding as I had seen it in my dream, and it was with my mother's brother. So, and that was very clear.
So you mean you dreamt it and then it became true, so it seemed as though it was predictive.
Yes.
Some Joyce scholars don't like to apply the wake as being predictive. Do you find that limiting, or you think it's wide open that we should do both, that it's both Joyce referring to stuff that he knew and stuff that, like, did Joyce know he would have these words like email in Finnegan's Wake and then eventually email would come up, or is that just a coincidence?
Joyce was most extraordinary insofar as he has many words that are current today, which didn't exist in when he was writing any of his works. And I think Joyce was ahead of his time, and
Yeah.
I think that he listened to his inner self. And so there are many things I've come across which are current today, which he couldn't have known at the time. So that's why it's so fascinating to read him because few writers have been able to do that. So.
I mean, he was like tapping into the zeitgeist because Martha Graham said, great artists aren't ahead of their times, they are their times. I think Joyce was both his time and the future, a little bit of both.
Absolutely, because he used the word spondulics for money, and of course that's used currently today. So, and email. He uses many things. Um, I think that exactly as you said it, that's the way he was. So.
Lewis Carroll said, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Um, I always believe in impossible things because, for instance, I was very sick in January, and I it was impossible that I should get well again, and yet I did. So that was an impossible thing. So
Yay! I'm glad you're well, PJ. Why is it so difficult for humans to consider the possibility that life may be pointless?
um, I think that people who consider life as pointless are people who feel that they don't have a future.
Yeah. Tell me one major element of your creativeness that stayed the same and one major element that's changed in the years you've been doing this.
I think one of the elements that have stayed the same is the I specialize in Joyce's works now, and I get thousands of people through the chemist Sweeney's of Lincoln Place, which I run, and I've run for the past 15 years this October. It's the pleasure I get from their expressions when they come in and they experience walking back into time because we're there since 1847. And for me, that's something that is very, very precious. But also, um, what will happen in the future is that the continuation.
Yeah. I thank you for keeping Sweeney's going. It's really important. Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Ah, well, a weakness that I turn into a strength. It's when a child comes in and I ask them to read something, say, from The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde, and they're afraid to do so, and they feel weak. And then they read it and they go out with a big smile on their faces saying, aha, I have achieved something. That's their strength.
That is a good illustration. Thank you. Fill in the blank, PJ. Anger can be a productive emotion when.
When it's necessary.
Yeah. I asked my friend who wrote comedy with Robin Williams, can satire be destructive? He said that's the job of satire. But if me or you do a cartoon in a certain country and they kill us, some people think dying's destructive. Swift compared satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own. What's the function of satire?
I think satire is if you've got someone sleeping in the corner and you use satire, they jump up and they listen. It's a listening process, and also satire is something that stimulates.
Yeah. What's the function of laughter?
Laughter is there are many forms of laughter. Some people laugh from anger. Some people laugh from mirth. Some people laugh from fear. The function of laughter is it relays our inner emotions.
Beautiful. Yeah. Gurdjieff said laughter is the reconciliation of yes and no. But
I
go ahead.
yeah, I don't quite agree with that. I think that laughter is a language within itself,
Yeah.
and if
Because,
when you get when you know your friends and you hear their laugh, you understand whether it's a laugh of happiness or if it's a laugh of questioning or if it's a laugh of rejection. So
you mean you can read someone by just the sound of their laughter and their facial expression.
you can read them, but you must know them first.
Yeah.
If you have never met somebody, but when you know your friends and you hear their laughter, you know what the laughter means. It's like the hidden language, if you like. So.
It's the hidden language. That is good. That's what my friend said. The wake is that hidden language you develop with your brothers and sisters or your friends when you're a kid, so that you can get over on your
Absolutely.
parents, with the secret language, this hidden language. But
Yeah.
Steve Allen said behind every joke, there's a grievance. What do you think of that line?
I think behind every joke there is a grievance. Not
Yeah.
a grievance, but sometimes a grief.
Yeah. There's a line that goes, you create
Because
what. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say that the comedians they make people laugh, but between all the jokes they tell, there's also a hidden grief. If it's their own joke, that they may not impart, but if you know them, well, then you see it. Say,
You mean they're getting this hidden grief out of their inner out by telling the joke?
yes, exactly.
Yeah. That's a good observation. PJ, there is actually a line that goes, you create what you resist. Talk about comedians, you got ESP. Bob Goldthwait said, you are what you hate. In fact, James Joyce said, it's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, thank God I'm an atheist. So this so this line, you create what you resist. I'm not saying you, PJ, but one creates what one resists. Any thoughts on that line?
I think it's a good observation. I think yes, you do create what you resist because what you resist you don't particularly want, and what you create is uh, it's going against what you've resisted. So,
What's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
the most, I think, for me, women have an innate sense of the future and survival, and men don't have the same.
Can you forget to die?
But I hope I will.
How do you find peace of mind?
Well, peace of mind is found in what you do and how you live. And I have, for instance, I'm here in France in my 13th century house, just part of a forest, and all I hear are the bird song, the deer in the garden, and the wind through the trees, and my books around me, and that's how I survive, and that's why it's my escape. Everyone has an escape,
Yeah,
or everyone should have an escape.
very good. In fact, McLuhan said it's misleading to suppose there's a difference between education and entertainment. It's always been true that whatever pleases teaches more effectively. What's the difference for you between entertainment and education? Is that true? Is it's always been true whatever pleases teaches more effectively. Any thoughts?
But I agree with certainly whatever pleases teachers, because if you don't like something, you don't learn. And
Yeah.
if you're entertained and pleased, you can't wait to get to learn more. So, for instance, if you have teachers and one is an entertainer and you listen to everything he has to say, and one is a controller and who punishes you for everything you might not have done, you learn nothing. Whereas the entertainer is the one you always remember and the one that you always have learned from. So,
If you could improve the education system, academia today, What's one program you would you know, one way you would say, let's change this in the way we educate people?
Well, for me, the teacher is the educator, and the teacher must be selected from some group who will actually find the best in their students and their children and help them develop who they really are.
Yeah, you brought this up a few times, like identity. Both McLuhan and Krishnamurti said violence is the human search for identity. What do you think of that line?
Well, of course, it's quite legitimate. It is a search, but again, it's again a $10 million question.
Well, how do we keep our governments from going to war?
We don't because they'll go anyways.
Yeah. In Utah, Phillips said anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
Nobody's entitled to make the rules, but you always have people who do make the rules, and then there are those who accept the rules. I mean, we have many examples of that in history and even currently.
Well, what's the difference between rights and responsibilities?
Well, the difference between rights is what your entitlement is. Uh, Responsibility, it's it's an odd comparison. Responsibility is what you're responsible for what you do, but your rights are basically you never hear of anyone being denied their responsibility, but you do hear people be denied their rights. I
Yeah.
suppose that's the best reverse of that.
What's the difference between rebellion and revolution?
Rebellion is when you actually decide to revolt and not do anything, and revolution is when you actually do it.
We got about 10 more minutes, PJ. This has really been fun. I appreciate it. These are 5 Alan Watts questions just off the top of your head in a couple words. One, who started it all?
I think that we started it all.
Two, are we going to make it?
Of course, we're going to make it.
Three, where do we put it?
Wherever we want to.
Four, who's cleaning it up?
The cleaning lady.
Five, five, is it serious?
It's always serious.
If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
I would say the one that's 16 with the blonde hair, you should have gone for her.
Which way? Woo! Which way should toilet paper come off the roll? Over or under?
Depending on which way you're holding it.
If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Um, Unreadable.
They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
I would say the binding.
Oh, that's good. If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Well, it would be made of marble, number one, and it would be displayed. in the center of O'Connell Street, where the Spire is now.
Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Well, I've never won the lotto, and I've never had it either. So um, that I think is something good, perhaps.
Very good.
I said
If
perhaps.
yeah, perhaps. That's good. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
I would find out where the shit came from.
What's the cult? What's the that is I never had that answer, PJ. Thank you. Well, you know what? You know what's funny? You'll love this. I asked that to a woman on Venice Boardwalk once, and she said, I'd take the velocity of the bag of shit and I would use it to swoop my way out of the vat of vomit. And I said, well, that's brilliant because that is this Descent into the Maelstrom, this short story by Edgar Allan Poe. You know that you
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
study these patterns and then you use them to break out. So what's the
Uh,
what's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
I think the cultural shift that inspires me today is people's unacceptance of what's happening in the world.
You mean suss that out? You mean they they don't accept
No,
it?
they don't accept what's happening today, say, in many countries,
And so then they
without
do.
being political.
I see. So
It's the rejection, say.
yeah, Leo Bersani studied Mallarmé, the symbolist poet. He said
Yes.
the very crises which threatens the writing of poetry sustains poetic composition. What do you think that means? Any thoughts?
I think that what he meant was that no matter what happens, you'll always have it sustained in any way. So
Yeah, it's funny because it's like, did Joyce write Finnegan's Wake the way he did because he had to sit down and write something? He was driven to write something. So he says, well, I'll write about writing. And so it sustained it. Like it's always interesting how people studying the wake want to figure out, well, why did he do it this way? they don't just they don't just surrender to the experience.
well, for me, Joyce wrote Finnegan's Wake because, first of all, he came from a country where we had Hiberno English, where we were forced to learn English and more or less get rid of our own language, Gaelic and or Irish. And then he worked in a Berlitz school where he had many students learning English, and they all had different accents, and he was listening to English spoken with different languages. So he decided that he would write a book using all these accents and these unusual ways of speaking a language which was unknown to them. And so I think for me, Finnegan's Wake is a collection and a mixture of music and language and above all phonetics.
Yeah. I'm glad you bring in music because I wanted to touch on that a little. My friend says the three T's of music are taste, technique, and theory. You know, you learn the technique, how to play the guitar, you know the theory, the structure. How does one acquire taste?
I think taste is natural. It's there already. So um, if you don't have taste for music, you don't learn it. And for instance, I love opera, but I was never taught how to like it. But I had a taste for it, and as a result, as a young teenager, I went to all the operas, even though nobody I knew had gone to them as well. So a taste is, for me, is inherent.
McLuhan said song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference. Any comment?
Well, music expresses the language as no other method can. And for instance, when you're learning a language, and I'm a teacher of languages, if you have your students listen to songs sung by a singer in that language, they tend to remember it more because the sounds are clearer. And also, for instance, when I was doing my exams, there was a guy called Donovan from London who sang Jennifer Juniper, and there was a French verse in his song, Jennifer Juniper. And so the type of words that I needed came up in my exams. I just quoted the song and I got first in my class. So
It's a really good example. What's more fundamental, music or language?
they both are so together that one is as fundamental as the other.
Tell me the title of a song, an instrumental song, no lyrics, that makes you laugh.
That's a difficult one. All the songs I normally sing with my songs. Instrumentals. Uh, I think Fair Elise is the one that comes to me.
Who's the composer?
Mozart, I think.
A Mozart, yeah. You know, Anthony Burgess wrote 8 books on Joyce and a shorter version of Finnegan's Wake. He really loved Joyce. He said, now ask some very different questions about the relationship between music and life. Now, what is a question that remains unresolved for you in general about your whole life and the world in general? What's a question that remains unresolved for you?
Well, the question that remains unresolved for me is whether I live to be 140 or 135. So
That's pretty good. The male life expectancy is 74 and the female's 84. So we're doing pretty good.
we're doing very good. Yeah. So 135 I'll settle for.
135. That's good. What do you think happens to you after you die?
I don't think we die ever. I think we go on to another way of living, and I think that quite often we come back and as different things.
Yeah. I like Paul Krasner says, I only believe in reincarnation in one of my past lives.
I like his style.
PJ, how is studying Joyce, celebrating Joyce shaped your behavior?
I think how my behavior is shaped studying Joyce is more to the point. So, no, I think that Joyce for me is a discovery. Plus, I know many members of his family. They come into me, and it's watching them and then having read their uncle or their great uncle, usually their great uncle now, and comparing what I've read and seeing the descendants of this great writer. So,
Well, here's a couple. We're almost done, PJ. Again, I thank you. Here's a couple quotes about art. I'm curious your thoughts. Mike Kelly, the artist, said, "Making art is making your problems other people's problems."
I can't agree with that. I think
Yeah.
that making art is something that is something magical within you that you express to others.
Well, what does freedom mean to you now?
Freedom means, for me, freedom is something where you have no constraints and you can be as you want to be.
Thornton Wilder, who was highly influenced by the Wake, said, "Art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time." You've laid your cards on the table for almost 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. PJ, what's it really all about for you?
What it's all about for me is the past, the present, and the future.
Well, how do you integrate them? It sounds good in words, but how can you integrate all three of those constantly? Because you're very much a person who lives in the moment, and I respect you for that. But what's the process of navigating, integrating them? Is there any kind of process or hints you have at doing that?
Well, the past is what you've lived and what you've experienced and what you've been told from your older relatives. Then you bring that to the present, and that's why I say live the moment, because this is your moment, because you can't live in the past because basically that doesn't exist anymore. And then the future is what you take from the present and into the future. So.
Yeah. McLuhan has a great line: "The future ain't what it used to be."
If it doesn't happen, it certainly isn't what it used to be or what it might be.
What gives you the most optimism?
The most optimism are my friends around me and the experience of meeting with them and experience their mirth and their laughter and not their laughter of grief, but their merriment of being amused. And also having drinking pints of Guinness with them, and as we're doing now, drinking Irish whiskey in France with them, and they're French as well. So.
I'll toast to that. PJ, the first question is, what is the best thing for a human being? You said live the moment. Wilhelm Reich said the best thing for a human being is another human being. So that resonates with your friend's idea. And the last question is, what gives you the most optimism? That's what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. And he said, other people. So it's sure been fun spending this time with another person, especially because it was you, PJ. Thank you so much.
Jerry, thank you so much. Jerry, can I sing a song for you?
Yeah, but I would say don't use the guitar because it will cancel it out. Can you just sing it a cappella?
I can always sing a cappella. So,
Very good, because I
um,
know the guitar might cancel out. But really, thank you so much for bringing that up. Because again, I want to thank you for all the work you do at Sweeney's, especially not even the word work. You have play. You create this atmosphere of community and commonality. So please bring it on. The song is what's important.
Well, first of all, the song is from the last story, in, as I specialize in Joyce's From the Dead, and it's called The Lass of Aughrim. And of course, it's about a lord who falls in love with a young village girl. He goes off to sea without telling her, leaving her with more than a kiss. And of course, when the baby is born, she goes to the castle gates, and his mother or brother won't let her in. And of course, the third verse is in page 151 of the Wordsworth edition of Dubliners, which I tell all our people when they're buying it. So it goes like this: If you be the lass of Aughrim, as you're telling me you be, tell me the first token that passed between you and me. Oh, do you remember that night on yon lean hill when we first met together? I'm sorry now to tell. Oh, the rain it falls on my heavy locks, and the dew it wets my skin. My babe lies cold within my arms. Lord Gregory, let me in. My babe lies cold within my arms. Lord Gregory, let me in. Anyway, the mother or brother didn't let her in.
Wow. Thank you, PJ. That was beautiful.
Thank you so
Yes.
much, Jerry. It's such a pleasure chatting with you always.
Cheers. And I'll see you Tuesday at the wake. And even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever.
Thank you so much, Jerry. And hello to all our listeners. And Jerry is one of the best ones who can actually interview some of the most unlikely people.
Well, I like you a lot, PJ. In fact, I love you and thank you for all you do. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Cheers.